So, hello everyone. Welcome back to our fourth episode of Business and Bubble Tea. So, we have the pleasure today to be talking to Paul Valentin Perrin, who has been a former PHBS management student who we met this year and who had the chance of graduating in December. He's currently holding a position as Event and Business Development Officer at the French Chamber of Commerce in Guangzhou. And we're really happy to have you here and to hear from you back again another time. It's really a pleasure. How you feel?
Very good, very good. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here as well, and can't wait to start the interview.
Yeah, good evening also
We're
from my side. Thank you so much for making this possible. I know it's also quite late for you, so even more many thanks for that to make it possible.
So maybe one thing we were very curious to know about you and how to start overall this presentation was to know a little bit what brought you to China, how you experienced China. We know that you had a very international experience before coming to China. You've been, if I don't mistake, 6 months in Sweden and as well 1 year in Russia. So for most people, that would be already a quite international experience already. So maybe what motivated you to pursue this additional adventure in China? Is there something that drove you?
Yeah, so I've always been interested into going abroad, not necessarily only traveling, but also living abroad. And I had my first experience with Russia, where I stayed there in Moscow approximately 1 year. And so it really got me into living abroad. I really liked it. And so I confirmed it later with Sweden. I was actually supposed to go in South America, but due to COVID, I chose Sweden, which was a great idea because we were really fun. And then so it was on exchanges with my French university. And then I really wanted to go to China because a friend had told me a lot about it, and I really wanted to discover the culture. I also knew that there was many opportunities there, so I applied directly to Chinese university. Luckily, I get admitted, and it was basically the ultimate commitment.
Were there like your initial time in China, any standout experiences in terms of like culture shock where you really had to remind yourself, okay, I chose to come to China, I wanted to pursue this degree at a Chinese university. How did you adapt to that, and how did you essentially deal with that situation then?
Well, the good thing is that thanks to my past experience, I already kind of knew how this experience was. So I was already quite prepared. Actually, I had been in 2 different universities in 2 different countries, so it's kind of a similar process. Now, I did have some things that were a bit tougher on me, which is funny because the major thing is something that also exists in France, is that Chinese people love the procedures. And while in France also, I had my issues with this. And I think I will keep having this all over my life. So better to deal with it. Then there is something that I really enjoy about China that is definitely not here in France, is that everything is super fast and people are very responsive. And the first time I saw that was actually for the international office of PHBS. And I was really surprised in a good way at how effective and how helpful they were.
The saving grace for all international students, really. Shout out to the international office. I think whenever we have a problem, we text them. I'm sure it was the same for you. We can text them at like 10 in the evening, and they're still trying to figure out solutions to help us out. So definitely.
Yeah, I think it's very true. It's especially the personal level with who we actually talk to, because I don't know you, but like I can also give you the example of when I was myself in France, was very bureaucratic, no consideration of you, and here everything just changes. So yeah, I can relate to that. And maybe speaking of the advantages that you just talked to us about being in China, I mean, the offer of universities that are actually competing now for attracting international students are quite big. How would you say that you discovered PHBS, and were there any specific factors that attracted you more to study here than anywhere else in China?
So I had applied actually to a few universities. I was received also to a few universities in China. Now I had a friend who really advised me. He's also the one who planted this idea in my head to go to China, because when I was in my bachelor's for a long time, I was not at all considering coming here. And he told me about PHBS. He told me that it was a good opportunity for us because Shenzhen was a new, vibrant city, and I also wanted to run away from the cold actually, because I had been in Russia and in Sweden and I couldn't take it anymore. So for me, it was the perfect mix. But mostly, to be more realistic, when I saw the two. I remember at one point I had two universities that replied that I could get into their program, and I don't know if it was a mistake from PHBS or not, but I could see all of the email address of the other students who were admitted. So what I did is that I went on LinkedIn and I checked their LinkedIn one by one. And I was truly impressed because everyone, either they had made their company, they had worked in a big company, or they had studied in a big university, you know. So I saw all these high profiles, and then I knew it. I knew that if I wanted to meet these people, to mingle with these people, then I should come to PHBs.
That's a very, very unique way to discover the value of a university. I have never done, I mean, I did watch people coming to my university and checking them out before, but not to the certain degree that you're specifying here. But it's a pretty smart move. So yeah, pretty nice.
And also, I think something that speaks generally for the community at PHBS, because as you said, everybody has really unique insights even before they come here. So I think you can really just benefit a lot from exchanging point of views with them and getting an idea of how different characters work here. So it's really amazing how everybody kind of pushes each other now.
Agree.
When did you personally actually start looking for positions? Because obviously writing and defending your thesis is a pretty busy time for any graduating student. So what was your timeline, or did you actually have a specific timeline, or was it just like, let me focus on one thing at a time? How did you go about it?
Well, I'm not really a planner by nature, but I like to take all the opportunities that I find. So definitely, as I came to China, what I had in mind was to try to meet as many people as I could, especially meet locals. And so I get a few opportunities from this. I went to this event, that event. I ended up having a little network in Shenzhen and doing things that other students wouldn't do because you know these are some opportunities that you need to grab. And regarding the internship for the second year, so it was a bit particular for people coming with me, because we had to spend 1 year studying from home and studying on the online. So we didn't have so much time in China to research opportunities. And I eventually decided to defer, which I think was a good move in the end, because I had a few interviews for internships, but the one I really wanted was where I'm working now, which is the French Chamber of Commerce. And so since I deferred, I was able to work there 6 months as an intern. And then they offered me a job, so I took it.
So maybe one thing that comes to mind, like when you're giving me your experience, is that maybe one of the best tactics in this kind of environment that you should probably take into consideration is to probably go through an internship where you have the time to practice and then hopefully achieve the opportunity to then continue on as a full-time job. Maybe very simply, all of this was already in your mind when you became an intern at the Chamber of Commerce? Was it predicted? Did you know that there was the opportunity to then continue on working there?
No, I was actually a bit surprised. I didn't expect them to give me an offer, actually. So at first, I wanted to get a bit familiar with the French business network in South China. Two, obviously, I had in mind to find opportunities, but then I didn't think I would find the opportunity actually within the French Chamber of Commerce. So I was very happy when they gave it to me.
Did you,
Definitely. No,
because you did mention you actually focused a lot on just building your personal network during the time that you had in China. But did you also take into consideration any of the, let's call it like career offers that the university was also specifically assisting international students with, like the career counseling or the career fairs? We also do a lot of company visits. Was that something that was like on your mind, or did you just pursue like your personal network within Shenzhen?
It was definitely in my mind, but the results were not really there because so regarding the company visits, there was a few, but mostly it would be mostly banks because I think that most of the students, or at least the local students in PHBS, what they're aiming is banks, um, investment
investment.
banking. Yeah, exactly. So this would be their main focus. So obviously the offer will be here, which is not at all my field. Regarding the career fairs, it was very complicated to find any opportunity as a foreigner, actually, especially since I don't really speak Chinese so well, which is a huge minus. Um, and so obviously I went to these events because I was really looking forward to it, but in the end, I didn't find much results. And I think that uh, the easier way probably for us is to search, if we're searching for a job in China or at least in Shenzhen, Guangzhou, is to search through our nationality. And I think this would be the easiest and the most helpful in a time where economy is not very good and the unemployment rate for young people is quite high as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's actually something that you are I think you are saying something pretty true. And maybe you also spoke many times about the value of the network, about you actually managed to find this job through the French network. I was probably asking myself because you being a French student, I would guess that maybe you've heard of this opportunity, which is called the VIE. I'm pronouncing it in an English way just for easier understanding of everybody. But it's a French government-sponsored internship program that enables you basically to work for at least a period between 6 to 24 months internationally with a lot of exposure to a secure framework. Did you have any interest into looking into those offers? Did you take into consideration, or is something that you didn't need to do because you already had your job position?
No, I was actually very interested and really looking forward to this because I thought and I still think that it's quite amazing for us actually. The salary is amazing. And probably you will not be able to reach this salary, as a fresh graduate, for sure. Second, you can have a real basis of companies, who are more or less looking for your profile. So that's also super nice. Although I would say that their target is not necessarily fresh graduates, but more people who would have 1-2 years experience in the domain, who would still be juniors, but who would know a bit what they're doing. Because um, you said internship, it's probably how they present it, but it's not really internship. You're not considered a completely full-time employee, but you're acting as one. So you still need to have a little bit of experience. And I know many people who are doing this VIE, VIA in China, and I can tell you that they have a nice life, definitely.
I mean,
Okay.
in the end, though, you decided to go with the offer of the Chamber of Commerce, and I think the idea of a Chamber of Commerce is well known, but I feel like what they actually do is a very vague understanding. So maybe you could break down the operations a little bit, give us some insights into what that actually entails of being with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Your question is actually very relevant because within our own members, the ones that we don't hear about so much, they barely know what we're doing. So this is also our job to go and meet our members to remind them of what they could benefit from us, because the Chamber of Commerce is a non-profit organization which is not funded by the government, so we entirely rely on our members. And so mostly the heart of our missions are events to have the members meeting. We also have relationships with governments so that we can give them a voice, you know. They can almost directly talk to the Chinese government as French people having businesses here. Then we're giving them some services such as recruitment, trainings. But mostly, I think the important part of the Chamber of Commerce is that it's quite flexible, because we are still a small association. We have chapters in Beijing, Shanghai, and South China, and the needs are completely different. As you know, Beijing, it would be more political, more the big guys. Shanghai, you'd have more finance and many companies that you need to entertain. And in South China, it's more of manufacturing, F&B. And so the relationship that you need to have is quite different, actually, because you're just not talking to the same people. So you need to adapt to the members, otherwise they will not follow.
That's pretty clear. So I guess, like, more or less, depending on where you are in China, it will have also different missions. It really depends on the members of each Chamber of Commerce, I can guess. So that's actually pretty important to just vary, and that's something that looks like a bit of a diplomatic work for commercial purposes. If I actually have to think about it, it's pretty interesting to see it on that way. Maybe what we could also do is like to understand a little bit more how you in this inside of the Chamber of Commerce are actually holding your role. What is the main activity that you would say is required of you to go to actually apply inside of your job of every day? What are you basically the most what is the most important mission that you have to carry inside of the chamber?
The things that I mostly work on is the events. So we have to keep having events for our members to meet, to learn also. We have, for example, some basic networkings, you know, where people would drink and talk, become friends. But we also have some working groups where they could gather between people of the same industry and talk about their problematics, because they have the same. But if they don't talk about it, then, you know, they wouldn't know. So this is quite nice. It also brings them together. I also do some business development. So business development is a little bit of finding new members, but they would know easily about the chamber. So mostly, I think the bigger work is to remain close to the existing members, so that we can know what they need and we can know if something is wrong and try to make it right. Because in the end, well, they're paying our salary each month, and so if they're unhappy, then there is no chamber also.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, speaking of the chamber, it's kind of in the name. It's the French Chamber of Commerce, but how French speaking do you have to be? Like, is there a specific language requirement? Because you mentioned Chinese, maybe not so much, but in terms of French, perhaps also English, were there any requirements of how fluent you had to be?
Yeah, so that's something that is actually super interesting in this company. At first, obviously, we are foreigners operating in a different country, meaning that we're French out of France, so English is a must, always. But then the rest is quite interesting, because the working language is French. So everyone speaks French, but the employees are actually half French from France and half Chinese, who have lived in France, studied in France. They can speak French, and that's the minimum requirement. But then it's quite interesting, because we have this culture, you know, that is really mixed. This is quite nice, and you learn a lot. And it's also a bit easier as a French person in China. Then I don't have to directly how to say, directly experience the Chinese management. You know, I can be a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, you're experiencing a European setting inside of a Chinese country, a cultural setting. It's like you're having both worlds at the same time in a way that makes it much more. I mean, it makes it easier for you to engage inside of Chinese society while still working in a European environment. So that's actually pretty interesting. Maybe one additional follow-up quick question. Do you have also activities alongside French activities? Like, do you collaborate with the other Chamber of Commerce, like the Italian, the German? Is it something that you might do, or is it something that you eventually want to do in the future?
Well, we actually don't do it so much, but there is one event which I actually participated into that event the first time a few days ago in Shenzhen, and now we're going to have the session in Guangzhou. We call it interchamber drinks. So it's very simple. We go to a hotel, book a room, get some drinks, some foods, and people talk, which is in the end the heart of our business. So we gather with 10 different chambers, and we invite members from all these chambers, and I was really well surprised the last time I went there, because the atmosphere is actually very, very positive, very friendly, and I think these events are actually really worth it. Really worth it.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. All of the insights that you have given us so far are really great, and we think there's a lot to know about what you're doing. Unfortunately, it's a YouTube video, and we still have to keep timing very limited. And for the sake of this conversation on my side, I will at least conclude with one question that I really want to ask you. So we came to know a little bit all of your experience, how you were working at the Chamber of Commerce and all. But maybe one question that I think a lot of our viewers would be interested to know is a bit, what was your path? What are the successes that you had, and what are the potential mistakes that you might have also done during your path? Is there something out of your experience that you would like to share and explain to our students that are currently studying right now and are currently finding a job?
Yeah, so my big advice for any student coming here is definitely to get out of the campus, because I know that the campus is actually super nice, super quiet, and each time I come back to the campus, I feel like I'm reviving. It's crazy, but you need to get out of the campus for many reasons. The first one is finding contacts, building a small network, finding internships, which will be very important if you want to keep working here in China. But also finding some locals, and finding maybe some other foreigners that are currently working, having different lives. And this is how you will also learn a lot about yourself, about the place you're living in, and discover the most.
Very good advice. So
that's good to know.
a good summary is embrace it. Embrace the experience. Also what you said in the beginning of like really taking advantage of that. There's so many things that are rather different from what you may be used to if you come from Western Europe or generally outside of the Asia Pacific area. So I think that's very valuable advice for everybody, to not rush and really just enjoy the journey. I think that's what we can take from it, right?
Thank you very much, Paul, for all of that information. It's really, really helpful. If Chiara, on your side, you're good. I think
I'm good. Thank you so much for the insights. Also for perhaps a less traditional career path that maybe not many students have thought about just yet. But thank you for your journey. All right.
Thank you for listening.
Ken, and hope to see you very soon, maybe on campus or maybe in Guangzhou. I wish you a very good continuing.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.